The UN General Assembly stood out with a few unusual highlights this year. Trump's teleprompter went offline, the opening speech was disrupted. Still, Trump said he ended 7 unendable wars and accused the UN of not even trying to intervene. One of those wars Mr. Trump has helped stop, we shall focus on later. UN Biodiversity Conference COP17 will bring UN members to Armenia in 2026. The event will bring the country under the spotlight of world leaders. How to capitalize on this opportunity to be seen and heard worldwide. This is where we start our conversation with the UN resident coordinator in Armenia, Francois. Madam Jacob, thank you for this opportunity. COP17 is ahead. Open the brackets for the general public, please. What's the significance of COP for Armenia, and how should Armenia capitalize this opportunity of global spotlight we do not get every day?
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Let me start with a little story. In 1992, there was a very big summit called the Earth Summit. This is one of the very first time that Armenia was present in a global event as an independent country. And in this occasion, Armenia signed and ratified and committed to 3 big global conventions on climate, on desertification, and on biodiversity. This is where the whole story started. Now, fast-tracked 30 years later, something that very few people were aware of up until last year, is the fact that Armenia is a biodiversity hotspot. What does it mean? Is that the diversity of nature in Armenia is unique. There is only 30 biodiversity hotspots in the world, and Armenia is one of them. And I think we need to not only recognize that, but celebrate that. And this is one of the main reasons why Armenia was selected to host this big conference.
So this was not purely a political choice?
No, of course not. There is a different rationale behind that. And I guess when it comes to the opportunity, the main opportunity is that there are 2 main opportunities. One, Armenia, as a president of COP that is coming next year, will lead international negotiations. So this is an exercise of international diplomacy that is excellent for Armenia's visibility around the world and for shaping a new narrative for Armenia. Second is that it is definitely a major opportunity for Armenia to accelerate what we call the green transformation, which is to tackle what we could call the triple planetary crisis, working on climate, working on biodiversity, and fighting against desertification, which is also very important topic for Armenia.
What's your message to COP17 influential participants who are packing their suitcases on their way to Armenia very soon?
Well, first is that they should expect to discover a country that is magnificent. It has so many unique features. For example, in Armenia you have, I think, around 130 volcanoes. Who knows that? No one. Even Armenians don't know that. And volcanoes bring unique ecosystem. But volcanoes can also be unique feature for a particular type of tourism. And I could give you 10 examples like this of issues that will interest all these visitors. We expect probably around 10,000 official visitors, so people who will come for the negotiation from about 170 countries. It's also an opportunity for these people to discover, of course, Armenia's hospitality. They will be in Yerevan, and hopefully they will spend some time around the country to discover Armenia's nature, to discover Armenia's very rich history and culture. So really, it's quite interesting. The other thing I want to mention is when a country like Armenia commits to organizing a COP, it's not just an event. Armenia has to demonstrate that they are committed to protecting biodiversity. And really, the country right now is developing its national biodiversity strategy and plan. And from that, we will have a number of initiatives that will start in the coming month. And then after the event will last two weeks. After the event, Armenia will be in charge of ensuring that whatever is negotiated and decided by the world during the COP event, this becomes implemented. And Armenia will be in charge of this for 2 years. So the country international commitment is pretty much 3.5 years. And you can imagine is both it's a fantastic challenge and it's an amazing opportunity for the country.
Within the context of pressing security issues, biodiversity has not exactly been a priority for Armenia, and global and local agenda diverge at this point. How can COP17 contribute to enhanced security in the region, combining local with global environmental concerns? Security is, of course, as you know, one of Armenia's most immediate needs. NATO conference was held in Armenia, and Turkey and Azerbaijan's representatives were here. They gave interviews. How can COP17 or climate and biodiversity agenda be localized, helping build trust and peace in light of Armenia-Azerbaijan negotiation process?
Well, thank you. This is a very complex but very interesting question. Globally, what is one of the number one reason for conflict is natural resources, access to water. It's one of the main reasons for conflict. It might not be here in the context of the conflict here, but what I'm saying...
Well, yes, not in this case.
Well, but you still have water issues between the different countries in the South Caucasus. So what I mean to say is environment, biodiversity, climate issues are becoming increasingly sources of tensions between communities, between countries, between regions. So what we do when we work on environmental matter or on biodiversity or on climate or on desertification is we actually de facto work on conflict prevention. And this is very important because Armenia right now is in a process, in a moment that is important because it's really trying to establish peace with its neighbors, and most importantly, sustainable peace, right? We want peace. Peace is not just a moment, it's a process, and we have to build the long-term peace. And to build long-term peace, you need to work with the entire society, with the communities on, of course, all sides of the borders, but also within the country. So we need to work on social cohesion. We need to make sure that refugees who came from Karabakh a couple of years ago have the proper economic opportunities. And a lot of the people in Armenia, communities, refugees, are in places that are surrounded by nature, are in places that may be affected by climate change, but by pollution. And so we need to work on these topics as well, so that the people in these regions have good, sustainable lifestyle that allow them to stay and to build good life within Armenia.
So what projects does the UN carry out in Armenia to support the 120,000 forcibly displaced, since you mentioned them?
Yeah, so we, of course, we did a lot of work in support of the government when the refugees came in September 2023. This was related to humanitarian assistance, of course. Now we are shifting to long-term assistance, and we will launch jointly, in support of the government, we will launch what's called a livelihood program for refugees. And if I summarize, this is a program it's a national program that will focus on creating long-term economic opportunities, either through economic diversification across the country, or through also supporting people to start their own business. So this is one area. The other area is that we working with the Ministry of Social Affairs in particular and Ministry of Education to help reskilling refugees, because people came with a certain set of skills. Some of these skills are useful. Teachers have been integrated, some of the nurses or doctors have been integrated in the national systems, but for many people we need to provide new skills. So this is going to be a national framework that the government will lead. It should be announced, if I'm not mistaken, early October, so you will know more about this at that point. And what we hope is many of the development partners, as well as different ministries, will be involved to support this initiative. It will be implemented by government institutions. It can be implemented also by civil society and to some extent by the United Nations. So I expect this will be, a 3 to 5 year endeavor. And the idea really is to provide stability and good economic condition for the refugees' family, but also for the host communities.
The UN, especially through the Security Council, is first and foremost a security organization. Mr. Trump's criticism of the UN's not intervening effectively in the resolving of world conflicts comes to the mind. What's the UN's share in helping restore stability in the South Caucasus? Back to another sore spot. The peace agreement was pre-signed under Trump's auspices between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and it basically latches on President Trump's personal authority. And as the Armenian authorities put it, it needs daily care. What would you say is the UN's share and responsibility to help implement it?
Thank you. Very important question as well. First, I think the leadership in both countries has played a very important role in making this happen. We are at the beginning of the process. The agreement still needs to be signed, and as I said earlier, signing the agreement is not enough. We have to make sure that peace is lasting. So there will be, there is a lot of discussion around connectivity, and connectivity is important because it brings countries together. It allows good and people to move around.
Interest co-influence, making sustainable peace more likely.
Exactly. So this is very important. What we see is one thing we have to really look into for Armenia is how we impact peace. Because there is, generally the peace agenda is supported by the people in Armenia. I truly believe this. There might be some question around what does it mean when we open the border? What does it mean for my business? What does it mean for me as a farmer? What does it mean for my community? Is my world going to be safer? What does it mean for the young people? What does it mean for the women? So I think we really need to impact all the different elements, because a situation of stable peace is new to Armenia. Where I'm quite optimistic is, you have some very vibrant economic sector here. Tech is one of them. I've met a lot of startup companies, a lot of young people. They are really looking forward. They have lots of ideas. So these are the type of forward-looking industries that will help develop also economic stability. The financial sector is a strong sector in Armenia. Now we are working with financial sector so that they support the green transition, but they also support inclusive economic growth. And by inclusive, I mean, among other things, supporting refugees to start their own business. So make credit accessible to refugees, make credit more accessible to women in rural areas. Women in rural areas often have trouble to access credit. So, all these matters are very important. What we want to make sure in this whole connectivity business is that Armenia should not become just a transit country. We have to make sure that everyone around the country, including the one in remote areas, benefits from the dividend of peace. And this is where we work, is to make sure that the most vulnerable groups receive as much attention as the groups that may be, more dynamic or that may have more immediate opportunity to leapfrog forward.
As you mentioned yourself, it is obvious that connectivity is the meat of the agreement, with Trump's route, with the US investing over $145 million in the infrastructure. How can we possibly get other UN big players interested in their own contribution to peace?
Yeah, once again, on the connectivity and on the infrastructure, it was very much on the agenda of the Prime Minister through his Crossroad for Peace initiative, okay? So I want to make sure that we have a narrative that builds on national ownership. It's really important because with national ownership, you will build social cohesion. And this country needs social cohesion within the country to move forward. So this is the first thing I want to say on that. There are already many other sources of financing for the big infrastructure, and quite a few of the international financing institutions, the international banks, development banks, are involved in financing some of these large infrastructure. Not just the north to south highway, east to west, but also things like waste management facility, which is very much needed here. What we see also is, and this is something that the UN can certainly trigger or support, is we need to, as I said at the beginning, we need to work on the green transformation. Green transformation relates to economic sector like the mining sector, the agriculture sector, the construction sector, the hospitality sector. And what we can do as a UN is bring best practice from the global environment. There are best practice in the mining sector. And we know that mining sector is a major economic contributor for Armenia, and we must make it more environmental friendly. It's not a choice. It's something we really need.
It's a must.
It's a must. So this is something that UN can support along with the financing institution. Same thing for the construction sector. For the hospitality, by the way, COP will be a huge accelerator for Armenia's hospitality. This is hotel, tourism, etc. But we have to make sure that the hospitality sector follow with their expansion, that they follow the good principle of the green economy. You don't want to destroy nature for the sake of tourism. So we really have to develop and use the good principle of ecotourism. I strongly believe this. I want to mention also, and I say this because this is something where both the UN as an institution, but also different UN member states can support. You look at your tech sector. Armenia is very successful, right? I learned last week that I think by now Armenia has 4 or 5 unicorns, right? Which is quite a success for a nation of the size of Armenia. The tech sector needs to support this transformation. And in the startup, you have a lot of people who are already interested in social entrepreneurship. I was quite amazed by that, But still, we don't have enough focus from both the startup sector and the tech sector on environmental matter. And the tech sector can really help, number one, by producing data. Where is biodiversity in Armenia? Where is pollution? What is happening with pollution, water, air pollution? What is happening with desertification? We have some very basic data, but not enough to develop really very strong action. So this is one thing the tech sector can do, and there is a lot of very exciting things to do on that. The second thing is, what can the tech sector do to develop smart agriculture? This is a country that needs to keep a vibrant agriculture. We call it food system, because agriculture not only feeds the people here, but it can be used for export. You have some very good product now, wine and brandy, for example. But Armenia can do a lot more than that. So I could multiply the example, but I'm calling the tech sector today, please, do more for the green agenda and the green transformation.
And an interesting loop. We ended with COP17 again. Thank you, Madame Jacob, for this opportunity one more time.
Thank you so much.